There's one thing for you to do. Your laundry.
Hard pass. We have concerns. Hi, Jeff Canada.
Hi, Anthony Carboni.
Hello, concerned citizens. Jeff, we have heard a lot throughout our lifetime about, and there's been particularly a resurgence of this on the internet recently. It's very popular right now to talk about the differences between men and women, and the fact that men were made to do specific things and women were made to do specific things, and those things are different.
Yes,
they're different, Jeff.
And when you say we're made, of course, you're referring to the creator deciding, the roles of men and women, because that's
right. Big ups to the creator. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I hear it's wonderful. Ryan Johnson doesn't miss.
Ryan Johnson?
Yeah.
It's not Ryan Johnson.
Oh, that wasn't Ryan. No, it was Gareth Edwards.
Yeah, Gareth Edwards.
I miss.
He misses.
I miss.
You miss.
I miss all the time. Listen.
No, so yeah, men and women be different. Don't get me started on my wife.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
And one of the biggest ones here is that men are hunters and women are gatherers. That's a thing.
Right.
That's a
evolutionarily
thing.
The men went out and killed the pumas. We killed pumas.
That's right. We would chase just all the pumas.
Yeah. A man chasing puma all day long, woman staying home and being a cougar. What?
Yeah. And we would only eat puma and that we wouldn't eat anything else. We would not hunt other animals to the exclusion of pumas.
It was a puma centric diet.
It was a puma centric economy.
Yeah.
And we all knew our place in society, and it was a better time, Jeff.
Yeah.
It was
the women gathered, they gathered nuts and berries.
Oh, women do be gathering.
We sat down at our Thanksgiving dinner and we had nuts, berries, and variations of puma.
That's right.
The traditional Thanksgiving feast.
That's right. And we've always had Thanksgiving, and it has nothing to do with anything else. It was back in the day.
The Neanderthals enjoyed their nuts, their berries, and they're like, thank you for gathering. And then the women responded, thank you for hunting puma.
That's right. And then they watched the parade.
That's right, with all the inflatables.
But this is a big deal. The idea of Man the Hunter. Man the Hunter is actually the name of the theory. It comes from, I didn't know this.
Man the Hunter.
1968. There was a published anthropological work called Man the Hunter. It was a bunch of scholarly papers that were presented at a 1966 symposium on contemporary hunter-gatherer societies. It was basically like, hey, we looked at all of this ethnographic, archaeological, paleoanthropological, all the pelagicals, all the Pilates.
Yeah.
We looked at all of it. And they said, hey, look, man's life as a hunter supplied all the other ingredients for achieving civilization. Man was the hunter, and we pushed society forward by hunting. It's
thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks, bro.
Honestly, and then later on they went, oh, you misinterpreted everything. There was a comma there. It was man, the hunter, man, that hunter. I'll tell you what. Man, the hunter, huh?
You heard about this hunter, man? So this is the deal: is Man the Hunter has been the main theory for a long time, and I want to say, when we're talking about men and women here, I want to put out right away that we're talking about sex versus gender here.
Right.
Sex, talking about male and female. We are talking about the physiological differences between the two sexes. Gender, of course, is a mix of that and societal and sociological things. It is putting gender into just male and female ignores a lot of a lot of other societal and anthropological evidence that we have for the fact that there's been more than that in terms of genders for all of human history. So, but when we talk about this today, when I say male and female, when I say man and woman, we are talking about that sexual difference. That's what we're talking about, the biological evolutionary difference. So I want to get that out of the way right now. But even that gender binary is something that's like, hey, you're ignoring a lot of evidence. But Man the Hunter also ignored a lot of evidence. But the idea with Man the Hunter was basically this. Man is just, we're more muscular. We're naturally stronger. Men are just better built for the physical rigors of hunting other animals, hunting other living creatures. Whereas,
I would assume some of it has to do with the fact that if, the female of the species is with child,
yes,
she is unable to, be as physically active. It endangers the future of the species if
absolutely
they're out, being hunting. So they're by nature sort of more locked into one location than the male, who never has to have the burden of childbearing.
Yeah, exactly. That's another one of the big theories about this, right? Is like, no, you have to be with child, so I will go out and I will submit myself to the dangers and the rigors of all of this stuff. But here's the thing about Man the Hunter. Even in 1968, when this book was published, they were already ignoring a lot of evidence that was already there.
That's a classic science move, though. Just ignore some evidence,
dude. It's part of the scientific method. It's theory, hypothesis, experimentation. Ignore some data. Throw away the data that's like bad data. That's like clearly like, ugh, that data. No, I mean we know what's true. So this data is kind of just like fucking with the truth. So you push that data out of the way. You take that data, you go, what about the indigenous population in northern Japan that, is clearly documented to have women hunting? No, that's weird. We got to push that away.
Like that. Outliers be ignored. So this idea was that Man the Hunter is a universal. It's cross culture.
Oh yeah.
It's a species level truth.
Yes.
That the male sex of the species is the one that is going out and acquiring the food. But even at that point, we saw cultures where that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing is you can look at those. You would look at those cultures in the 1960s where women were hunters, and you would be and I think some of this data by these scientists, they would look at it and they'd be like, well, the world is really not a hunter gathering world anymore, and so these societies of people are outliers. They're not the real, they're just the I before E except after C of hunter gathering.
Well, if it was the 60s and they were looking at the women hunters and they had those bouffants, and they're like, how could they even hunt with those crazy bouffant hairdos? And
the pin heels and things like that. Just it was tough.
It was a different time. It was a different time.
But that's the thing is there was a lot of this. A lot of this
sexism?
A lot of this was just rooted in plain old sexism, right? Because there was already evidence of this in modern society, but there was already like evidence of this in the fossil record, in the bones that we've found, in all of this stuff. And we've just been finding more and more data on how Man the Hunter is untrue. But there's been a real resurgence lately on social media. There's been a real resurgence, particularly on there's a bunch of like TikTok channels, YouTube channels, podcasts. You know, there are these like the Manosphere is what the Manosphere podcasts that are like, hey, they're really bringing this sort of like idea of the evolutionary differences here and what they pertain to sociologically. Like they're really bringing it back hardcore. And a lot of these channels are getting huge. A lot of these
used
TikTok
to justify some really regressive behaviors.
Extremely regressive behaviors and regressive ideas that are using this antiquated they're using this antiquated knowledge that comes from a book that has basically been disproven from day one. And it's been such a bummer to watch the rise of this after what inarguably over the latter half of the 20th century was like a huge push forward for sex and gender, to watch like the growing popularity of these old ideas coming back. And so this is an article that was submitted a couple times on the Discord, but also has just been making the rounds that I think is really, really good. That was in Scientific American. That's just called "The Theory That Men Evolved to Hunt and Women Evolved to Gather is Wrong." Just wrong. Straight up wrong. And there's been some interesting stuff that kind of shows this off. One of the things that is talked about quite a lot with Man the Hunter is our upper body strength and our testosterone, right? Yeah. It's a huge deal. One of the things that I want to say, first of all, is if you think about this, the idea of Man the Hunter and how men had to hunt because they were stronger. If you just think about it for a moment, you can see how ridiculous it is. Before I even get into these scientific differences, hunting, we didn't hunt the puma with our bare hands. There's no reason that an upper body strength would be the secret to us hunting. If you think about every single animal that we've ever had to hunt, minus a rabbit, you know what I mean? But if you're thinking about big game animals, and like we hunted mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and like whatever the fuck it is you're imagining, that wasn't barehanded. That was done with traps. That was done with tools. That was done with bow and arrow. That was done with all of these things that immediately, one of the first things man did was invent tools and machines, simple machines, that made it so we didn't have to rely on our strength, because when you bring us strength to strength with animals, we fucking lose.
Right.
We fucking lose, man. You're not going to chase down a tiger. What are you talking about?
The other thing that sort of doesn't pass the just a common sense test is that it seems to me that the determining factor here is necessity, right? Is the need to eat. The requirement to feed yourself and your loved ones. So it seems to me that like we imagine this sort of abstraction of, or at least what appears in my mind is some kind of, crazy old timey painting of, women sitting with a basket, plucking these abundant berry bushes that are growing everywhere, while the man off in the distance is throwing a spear at the puma.
Yes.
But what is probably much more likely is that sometimes there was some berries to pick, but oftentimes there was a hell of a lot of nothing.
Yeah.
There was a scarcity of resources, and you had to survive. And so all hands on deck, we got to find something to eat.
Yeah. If there are no animals around, y'all better be picking berries. If there are no berries around, well, there's no point in having people sitting around to pick berries. You got to come out on the hunt with us today. There are no berries. I remember going to the Natural History Museum in New York when I was a kid. one of my favorite places on earth. But I remember going and seeing, the halls, the rooms that you would walk down with the giant reconstructions, the giant dioramas, the scenes that they made with the wax figures. And you're right, it would be three cave women sitting around a fire, and then literally 10 feet away, a dude like spearing a saber-toothed tiger, right? And it was like, well, number one, if that was really the truth, you got to hunt those tigers farther away.
Yeah.
You got to set up camp farther away from where those tigers are, because that's not enough space.
Yeah.
You can't.
Honey, I'm just going to sit right here and let the food come to us.
No, but the cave women used to sit and watch. It was like a high school football practice.
Right.
The women love to watch the cavemen hunt because they love how virile they look. They also love to watch the cavemen rev the engines on their cave cars. Yeah. Women love that shit.
But women be getting cold easy, so they don't want to leave the warmth of the fire. You know how women get cold all the time.
Oh, they're always cold.
You have to give them your cave pelt and you let them bundle up.
You can wear my pelt, and it's like, why do I even bother bringing a pelt? You should just bring a pelt, and I should just wear a long sleeve pelt instead of my jacket.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm just going to give you my jacket.
I know you look delightful in your sleeveless pelt, but maybe you should have worn a long sleeve pelt because it's a brisk night.
Yeah, and I'm out there all day working at the puma hunting plant, and you're at home shopping for berries.
Yeah.
It's that doesn't make sense. That division of labor doesn't make sense. But above and beyond that, so above and beyond these things that you can just think of off the top of your head that would make it incorrect, thinking about the difference in estrogen and testosterone is another big one, right? The idea that like we just have this testosterone and we have this massive upper body strength and we grow beards, and so we're made to do this. We're made to do the sports and the hunts. But the thing that people don't understand is like estrogen is equally valuable in athletics in different ways. Women tend to have more slow twitch muscle fibers and tend to burn fat before they burn carbs, whereas men have more fast twitch muscle fibers and tend to burn carbs before fats. And also, men, how men be like, I don't even know enough men be like, women be like jokes anymore to get us through this episode. I don't. I just do like, all I know is like women be shopping. That's the only one I know. I can't remember any of the other ones. Men have the testosterone and they burn the carbs. So men be eating meats and women be eating salads.
I guess.
I don't know.
Men be, men be, I don't even know either. The beards, though, I think the beard's very useful in the hunting, right? Because then you blend in with the animal. Mm-hmm. You blend in.
The animal. If the animal's looking out of the corner of its eye and it sees beard, it goes real quick. It's like, oh, I was worried for a second, but that's another animal.
Yeah,
and you just keep going.
That scene in E.T. where they open the closet and they look at all the stuffed animals, and then the E.T. is right there, but they just think it's another stuffed animal.
Exactly.
That's what the puma does on the plains. Yeah, it's like it's like puma, bearded dude, puma. It just sees it's all the same to it.
Yeah. Suit of armor, Shaggy and Scooby, suit of armor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So the idea here is with those slow twitch muscle fibers and the ability to burn fat, and particularly burning the fat that's in the muscle before they burn other fat, women are particularly suited to endurance and long-term physical activity more than men are. You're a marathon runner, so you probably have seen this.
Oh, yes.
Women are...
They excel at endurance sports.
They really do. And what's really interesting is for a very long time, and still I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, the idea was no, man the hunter, man the athlete, men are better at running. And so there was a thing in marathon running and in racing, in foot racing, where women weren't allowed to have men run as the pace setter. There's a pace setter in races that like runs along with the rest of the race, and it like helps people know what the average time of a race is, right? I've got their job right. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Basically it's like, this is, if you're running with the pace setter, you're keeping a very specific time per mile or whatever.
And it's like, it's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Women's races were not allowed to have male pace setters for a very long time because they said it makes women artificially faster.
That's funny.
Artificially fast. They were like, oh, by adding a male pace setter in, it makes all the other women artificially faster in a way, as though they were not doing the running themselves.
Right. Yeah.
As though it wasn't the relegation to women's only sports and being told that they were lesser that sort of evolved into them not doing as well. Right.
Yeah. Right.
As though it wasn't the fact that like a lot of athletics research and even nutrition and supplements research, only like 25% of the subjects in these studies are female. We don't study when it comes to like, these are the nutritious things that you need to make your muscles stronger and make you faster and better, as tested on men. Mostly.
Yeah, right.
And then there's well, so you're telling me that we know that this supplement does a good job at making people faster. Well, yeah. We think overwhelmingly it does. There was a margin of error though. Oh, what's the margin of error? Oh, about 23%. Isn't that the number of women in your study? Yeah.
Yeah. It's give or take one sex, really.
Yeah, give or take a gender.
Yeah.
So, that's sort of the issue that we've had with this research is the fact that like, no, if hunting was genuinely just based on physical prowess, then women would actually have been the better hunters, because tracking prey is a long-term thing. Hunting is not like you go out, you're like, well, these are the hunting grounds. And the moment you hit the hunting grounds, it's just elk everywhere.
Right.
All of a sudden it's just like, well, there are no elk. And then you pass the border into the hunting grounds and it's elk for days.
Right.
It's like, we're lousy with elk over here. No, you're going to have to track that prey. You're going to have to spend a long time out in the wilderness. You're going to have to perhaps like be set up in a hunter's blind, right? Like crouched, perched, doing uncomfortable shit for hours to hunt an animal. And it turns out that the good shit for that, testosterone helpful, but for that long-term stuff, it's estrogen. Estrogen is going to be better for that in a lot of ways. Estrogen is also better for glucose metabolism, insulin sensitivity, stuff like that. So when you're out there for the whole day and you're eating irregularly and you're going through bouts of physical exertion followed by like slow periods of rest, high estrogen is actually going to help you keep your energy levels up throughout the day longer. Kind of wild. Kind of wild.
I'm inclined to believe that it was a shared responsibility among the tribe or whatever organizing group it was. I just feel like necessity and just the pure requirements of survival, probably meant that it's like, hey, we got to eat. If we're going to be a functioning group, we got to eat. And however we eat is however we eat. If we've got some bushes to pick, everybody get over here. It's not like the men be sitting at home like, well, no hunting today. Hope you enjoy go gather, babe. You know, that's not how it's going to be. Everybody's going to be doing the thing that's needed to be done.
Yeah, we're looking back on it from a time of abundance, right? And so it's like, well, I don't need to get food today because I got food yesterday. Nah, dog, that's not how it worked.
Yeah.
If you do that, you run out of food. That's not how it works. And you're right. There is a lot of physiological evidence that shows that women did go out on the hunt just as much as men. It was shared responsibilities. When we look at the skeletal remains of ancient people, okay, when we look at differences in body size between the males and females of a species, you get something called sexual size dimorphism, okay, which is basically the difference in sizes on average between the males and females of a species. Okay. So if you see pronounced size dimorphism, if you see that sort of thing, that means you are looking at a society where larger males compete with one another for access to females, right? So that's like your great apes. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you look at low sexual size dimorphism. That is basically what happens in species with basically sexual equality and monogamy. Okay, so modern humans, we have low sexual size dimorphism compared to great apes, right? The size of the average man and the average woman is closer together than the size of the average male and female great ape. Okay. The same goes for our human ancestors, which basically means like men and women were doing essentially the same stuff. There was no reason for that dimorphism evolutionarily to get that different, right? Because we were all doing the same things. So it makes no evolutionary sense for one sex to become larger than the other.
Right. We
also found that like on Neanderthal bones and skulls, looking at their fossil records of their remains, they all died in similar ways. Like we're not seeing trauma differences that you would expect.
Not like one sex was dying from being attacked by predators or
the male bones all crushed by saber teeth.
Right.
All the male bones crushed by saber teeth. All the ladies choked on berries.
Yeah. Right.
They all choked on berries. They all died of shopping.
They all died of arthritis from picking all those berries.
That's right.
We found gnarled fingers with berries under their fingernails.
Their hands were curled around ancient remote controls from sitting at home and watching their stories. No, it was all.
We did find though. We found that with the male remains, there was a lot of males that had microbrews.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had tons of microbrews.
That's right. Ale's right in the name. That's right. Hey, isn't ale in female too? No. Different. That's
the Paleolithic era is what that was
called. No, the male and female Neanderthals don't differ in their trauma patterns. They don't exhibit differences in pathology from repetitive actions either. So like we can tell by the fossil record whether like one sex wore their joints down in a different way than another sex, right? Yeah. We can tell those things. So
I gotta tell you though, as someone who's married, I really enjoy wearing my joints down differently than my wife. Mm-hmm. I don't like it.
Me and the boys are going out to wear out our knees.
Yeah, I don't like wearing our joints down the same way.
That's not like a thing. You don't need to ask about it. It's a totally normal thing. Me and the homies are going to go out and wear out our knees together. Just us. And it's cool. And we're still monogamous. I got to go.
You know how some older couples that start dressing the same, that's what I don't want that to be that way with our joints.
No.
You know what I mean? I don't want to get to the point where people look at us and they're like, oh my God, those two have worn their joints down in the exact same way.
Oh my God, but wait for it. So did their little dog. They all look related. They're one of those.
All of them.
Yeah.
Look at their joints. They're all worn down. Exactly the same way.
Oh yeah, no, it's all the same when we look at the fossil record, which means like, hey,
everybody did everything.
Everybody did everything. Now one thing that we did see is that males living in the Upper Paleolithic. Now that's about 45,000 to 10,000 years ago. That's about when early modern humans entered Europe, and immediately began just eating chips and watching football immediately.
Oh, yeah.
But also we saw that men in that area did show higher rates of a set of injuries to their right elbow, which it's thrower's elbow.
Oh.
So which would mean they were more likely than females to throw spears, but this is also the period where we invented the bow and arrow, hunting nets, and fishing hooks. So what's more likely is that cooperatively, hey, Ugluck, you're better at throw spear. Big Arm, you better at throw spear.
Yeah.
Me, Jane, better at throw net.
Yeah, I will use the bow and arrow.
Better at bow and arrow. Better aim. Because once again, estrogen, better fine motor skills. That's something that means, hey, rise up, gamers.
Yeah.
Women have better motor skills, fine motor skills. That's women be esportsing.
Yeah. I mean, that just makes sense. It just makes sense. It's interesting that we're seeing this come to light now. I mean, I hope people, I do think there are differences between men and women, right? Yeah. Traditionally. Right. But those, and those things could be celebrated, but it is often the case that anytime you dig into it on a anthropological level or a scientific level, you find it's that there are different ways to accomplish the same things, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that one is ill-suited for the task. It's that the task is accomplished differently.
I mean, yeah. And I think when we look back on these societies and we look back on this stuff, I think the larger question that we don't ask, that we need to start asking, is is there an evolutionary difference between male and female? What is the evolutionary difference? What is the sociological difference? Where did it start? Where men crave power and control.
Yeah.
That seems to be the overarch. Like when I look at it, that's not something Scientific American is saying. That's something that I'm looking at and I'm thinking is what caused men to need power and control over society, to need to be physically better, intellectually better. What caused it? What was the need there? And that's something that I think is.
You could surmise that a lot of that is access to mates, right? Is trying to get access to mate and have dominance over the other males.
But potentially women could have evolved that too.
Sure.
There could have been something where women evolved that too, because women wanted to compete for male mates. I think the biggest thing that would be the difference there, and you're right, would be death by birth rate.
Right.
Death by birth rate. Like women, when we see any perceived idea of the difference in death rates, where it's like, oh, but men died of more violent things. Men died, going out there and working, or going out there and hunting, like you're saying. Well, it's because childbirth, because it was overwhelmingly fatal for a huge amount of human history.
Right.
The death rate through birth was higher than the birth rate at certain points in history.
Right.
For certain societies and certain cultures and caused them to die off or nearly die off. So I think you're right in that access to mates certainly could have been a part of it, but how did that allow that power to be grabbed That's the other thing that I wonder. I don't know. And I'm sure there are concerned citizens out there listening right now that know more about it, that are answering the question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, a lot of this is like really interesting. Like when we look at the not just the creation of these sophisticated tools, when we look at the Upper Paleolithic again, one of the other things that we see, even though we see more thrower's elbow in men, we see that male and females were buried in the same way in the Upper Paleolithic, which is a huge idea. They were buried with the same kinds of artifacts. They had the same kind of like grave goods, you know, like when we think about grave goods, we mostly think about, I think, pharaohs, Egyptian pharaohs, buried with all your stuff. Right. But grave goods are a thing in a lot of cultures. And when male and female bodies are buried with the same grave goods, it means that basically there probably weren't social hierarchies based on sex. It wasn't like women were buried with thread and needle and a lute or some shit.
It's not they weren't lesser than in the society. It's they're buried with the same stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was a kid, I used to always want to go to Toys R Us, but my mom would make me go to Grave Goods first.
Yeah.
And it was so annoying because like Toys R Us was right next door to Grave Goods.
And it's like their stuff is just as good. It's right in the name. Like anything you can get at Toys R Us, you can get at Grave Goods. And it's like,
and I'm like, Mom, no, come on. I don't want
to take a toy.
Yeah. It could have a spirit stuck inside it, because it was buried thousands of years ago.
I just hated taking the toys out of the curled skeletal fingers of the dead children.
Yeah. It was a weird self-checkout process.
Like, you could have, and then the other thing is my mom was like, and also you can only have G.I. Joes. Yeah. Because those are for boys. So so make sure to get the G.I. Joe out of the hand of the little dead boy. And I'd be like, Mom, can I have this? I want an easy bake oven. I want to make my own snacks. No, you leave that. Joes. That's for dead girls.
The thing about them having that self-checkout was because they just really could not keep employees. You know, it's very hard to maintain a staff when the staff is constantly, haunted to extinction.
Yeah, they would just disappear overnight. Staff would go in, but they wouldn't come out.
But man, my mom loved Grave Goods. Oh. She got so many candles there.
Did your mom ever make you sneak into a movie with your own snacks from Grave Goods in your pocket?
Oh, dude. That was what we would always do. We'd always stop into Grave Goods before we went to the movie theater. Mm-hmm. And I could pick one candy from one dead child's hand.
Yeah. And it was always a comically large lollipop with a skull so close to it you could almost see the tongue, but there is no tongue. There is no tongue. But it was still wearing the little Lord Fauntleroy hat with the ribbon.
Yeah.
It had the hat with the ribbon and it was licking the big lollipop. You just couldn't see the tongue.
I always liked getting M&Ms because they melt in your mouth, not in your cold dead hand. You know?
One of the other things that we see in ancient DNA here is, so we saw in Neanderthal groups patrilocality, which basically means males were more likely to stay in the group they were born into, and females moved into other groups. And what that basically was an attempt to avoid incest by trading mates. So that is something where we do see like, hey, you're gonna, like, the idea was, oh well, males would trade females with each other. They would be like, oh, we will give you these women to your tribe or your society, and
real wife swap situation.
Yeah, and so because of that, we had this idea that like it was probably males were in power and blah 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 blah.
Right.
No, it was just they already understood that women had to have children with males that were outside of the group for the children to be healthy. They already understood that. And it just made more sense for the women to go to the new group than the men. It was an easier way to keep track of who was moving between societies. And so it's all of these things, like they don't, you can bend some of these surface facts to fit a narrative that you want it to fit, which is how Man the Hunter started to begin with. But when you dive into these things, they don't bear out, right? Just because women moved to different groups of people doesn't mean that they were traded like property. It more means like agreements were made between the two groups of who would move between groups for the safety and the health of the group. You were talking about it earlier. They lived like they were mostly nomadic, right? They had very low population densities. They had frequent local extinctions. Entire groups would die out, like we were talking about. And so there was very low genetic diversity. And so for people that live like that, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. Flexibility and adaptability are way more valuable than any sort of rigid gender role, right? When you are facing the extinction of everyone you know, you're not worried about who's better suited to do what. It's all hands on deck.
Right.
There's no time to be like, well, Ugluk strong, Ugluk throw spear.
Yeah.
It's like, no, man, like not today, Ugluk. Today we're by water. So today we're fishing, Ugluk. So grab a hook and let's go fishing. Because otherwise we're going to die. You're talking about people getting injured all the time. And that injury is death a lot of the time. Or injury means that you're no longer physically useful in ways that you used to be. So like, hey man, if you can't throw that spear anymore, Ugluk, you know what you're probably real good at? Hunting berries.
Gathering. Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably what you're good at now. So everybody does what they can according to what they're able to do. Animal and plant food changes with the seasons. Everybody needs to be able to step into any role. And like, listen, breeding partner was a role. Man was not in charge. It was like, hey, Ugluk, you need to come over here and do the wiggle wiggle with me. Yeah. You know how we figured out the wiggle wiggle means babies? It's your turn.
Yeah.
It's your turn because we don't know which dad mixed with which mom makes the strongest kids, and we're all dying out. So we got to make sure that we all go around and we do this. Yeah. Because they already knew that some people getting together meant a stronger baby than some other people. And they knew that it was, I don't know what they believed it was, but they knew that there was some randomness to it, Yeah. And there's still, and even today there are contemporary foraging societies that show just as many women hunting as men. Like there's the Agta people in the Philippines, and the women in the Agta people actually hunt while they're menstruating, pregnant, breastfeeding, and they have the same amount of hunting success as men. They've done ethnographic studies on it. 79% of the 63 foraging societies in recent studies show like women hunters, regardless of childbearing status, regardless of where they're at in their lives. The end. Man the Hunter is an old 60s idea that came from a time, when you look at 1966, it came from a time where men in modern society were most worried about women coming for their power.
Yeah.
All these weird ideas women had where they wanted to go to work. They wanted to go to school. They wanted to go to college. They wanted to get degrees. They wanted to own their own property. We didn't let them do that until much later. We didn't even let them have bank accounts. My grandmother wasn't allowed to have a bank account in the 60s. So there was a lot. It's no surprise that the theory of man the hunter came out of that time to me.
Just to reinforce the status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like it. And so what that means is, please, someone of any sex or gender, come take care of me.
Yeah.
I'm not Hunter.
I want to neither hunt nor gather.
No, I'm baby, Jeff.
Yeah. That's good.
I'm just like baby. I have to play Spider-Man 2. I don't have time for this. I'm a weak baby. Somebody of any sex or gender. Simply come and take care of me. That's all you need. That's all I need. Thanks to everybody who sent this into the Discord. The Discord, a lovely place to hang out, Jeffrey. Oh, fantastic. With the coolest folks. It's an exclusive club that you can enter for only $1 every month. It's such a low price. A low price. And it's the only way that we support this podcast and keep doing it. So we really, really appreciate everybody who joins up. And you'll get to chat with a lot of great people there. We're talking about all kinds of different things. But you'll also, if you want to give a little more, get access to a little more, like monthly Q&A videos with me and Jeff. You'll get bonus episodes, bonus videos of episodes, and all kinds of wonderful stuff. If you'd like to check that out, go to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. Just allow us to you hunt with money. We gather forage money. Yeah, no, you're nailing it. I'm getting it. It's good. You got it. All that keeps popping into my head is women be shopping. I got nothing today. I got nothing today. Take care of us. Please take care of me. I can't think.